Hello my lovelies and welcome back to my channel. Today is day 4 of our Menta hat sew along. Today we're putting together the hat, so for some of you today is the last day. I do have one extra video coming tomorrow for how to attach and create the back part for an explorer style hat with more shoulder coverage. But if you have if you're not adding that part, it's pretty much your last video today. So let's start first with the reversible hat. What I would like to start with today is top stitching, which I haven't done yesterday, but if you did, you don't have to worry about it, obviously. I'm going to top stitch the seam allowance of the brim towards the side of the hat on both the main and the lining. So I'm going to do that just to help the hat keep its shape a little better. And for top stitching I will use a 3.5 length. Top stitching the seam allowance up towards the hat will help with its shape, especially since these hats will most likely be washed because, you know, sweat, dirt, dust. And since they're made of woven, we can definitely wash them in the washing machine. Maybe just hang to dry. But it will definitely keep its shape a lot better if we do this additional top stitching. Again, this is the reversible hat that I'm sewing right now. And I'll repeat the same thing for the other side. So I'm pushing this seam allowance towards the side, not the brim. Let's turn the one of the sides wrong side out, and we're going to put those two hats together, right sides together, aligning the side seams at the brim. So right now they are right sides together. Okay, I'm going to put a few pins all around the brim. Again, this is 1-to-1 ratio, so it should be, you shouldn't have any issues pinning the brim. Kind of like what we did yesterday with just the brim, but now it's the whole hat. And remember, we have an opening here where we'll be turning the hat in the next step. And this is the hat that we'll be getting tomorrow, the removable back part. Okay, so let's stitch all around the brim with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Keeping the side seams open. the way around, because we have an opening on the side seam, so we don't need to leave any openings on the brim. So all the way around. Right now, if you want, you can go ahead and do pinking shear cut around, like so. This is the scissors that I was telling you about. They work great, but they're so heavy. So I'm doing this to remove some of the excess bulk, and I see here where my stitch went a little crooked, so I want to fix that before I turn it. Easy fix. Okay, and let's continue. Snipping. It's harder where the seam allowance is. Okay. Oh, that's a workout for my hands. Okay. So now, using the opening that you left on the side seam, right here, you're going to grab the hat and turn it all the way. And this will make it fully reversible. So you worked one time and got 2 hats out of it. Almost done. Pretty easy when it's just woven. It was a little harder yesterday when I used the water resistant canvas, but if you use just woven, it's pretty easy to turn it, as you can see. So now I'm just pushing everything out. Make sure all the seams are turned. Okay. And now for this opening here, you have a few options. If you are fancy and you want to do it the right way, you're going to do a ladder stitch by hand. Okay, you're going to stitch this seam open, closed by hand. I am not fancy like that. So what I will do, I'm going to push this out. But definitely the best way is to, and the prettiest and most invisible way, is to do a hand stitch to close that part. Since this is for my boys and I'm not fancy, I will not do that. But what I will do instead, I will do a small zigzag stitch here, and I'll go through both layers, through the front and the back. This will also keep it in place. And I will go through the front instead of the back, because my bobbin thread is white and the background on the other side is white. So I'll do a white, well, not too wide, maybe a 3.5 and a pretty long zigzag stitch just to close that hole. And it will blend right in because I'm using white thread on the bottom bobbin and unicorn mane on the top, so it will blend right in. Obviously you will see that stitch if you want to look close enough. So if you don't want to see it at all, just to do a hand stitch. So this is what it looks like from the inside, stitched together. Beautiful. So my hat is done. I'm going to go ahead and top stitch around the brim. First I'm going to top stitch as close as I can get it to the outside part. And then maybe I'll do 1 or 2 more lines inside, but first on the outside. Okay, and I'll do a 4 length for top stitching. This is about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Don't skip this top stitching. The other ones inside the brim are optional. It will make the brim stiffer, but this one I would not skip it. Especially if you're planning on washing the hats, and you probably are going to wash the hats. Go easy where the seam allowances are, because it's a little bulky there. So your hat is completed at this point. If you want to add the extra top stitching on the brim to make it stiffer, you can. You obviously don't have to. Okay, I think I'll do 1 more row of stitching, about 1/2 inch away from this initial one. Actually, yeah, centered. If you're doing the medium or bigger brim, you'll definitely have room for more top stitching rows on the brim. I'm doing just 1 extra one. Done. Your first bucket hat, the reversible one, is done. This one I'll give it a good press on the brim, and then tomorrow we'll add the part that goes on the back. Let's move on to the other style hat that I'm working on, which is the high-low non-reversible. So I gave it a good press yesterday. We have the crown and the sides here, and then we have the back, the brim with the back where the side seam is. So let's go ahead and find the front, if we haven't marked it yet, because the side seams are already marked. Oh, and the front was marked here. So I'm going to match whatever I selected for my right sides, because I have the same fabric. I know based on the color of my top stitching. So this is my right side, and I'm going to mark the center front like so. So the center front is where there's no seam. The longer part is in the back. So right sides together. I'm going to pin it in place here at the marking point that I made. And this will have a raw edge here, and that's totally normal. We're going to enclose that raw edge with bias tape or twill tape if you have it. So right now I'm pinning it all the way around, leaving the part that has the ponytail opening without any pins, because there's no back seam there, back side there. And that's totally okay. It will come together nicely, and you'll see in the next step. And this brim does not have a side seam either, so just pin 1-to-1 ratio. It will fit, I promise you. The patterns are drafted very well. Okay, so this is what it will look like. You can see it's pinned all the way around, and here there's an empty part for the ponytail. This is the outside, and this is from the inside. And let's go ahead and stitch all around those pins with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, make sure that your stitch length is back to 2.5, so it's for secure stitching, not just top stitching. And again, you can sew from the brim side or from the side seam side, whatever is easier for you. Just make sure that there's no puckers. Beautiful. All we have left to do right now is finish nicely that raw edge, because right now, as you can see, the inside has raw edges, so we don't want to leave it like that. But your hat is done. Now that we have the brim sewed to the hat with this back opening, we need to take care of this raw edge here on the back. So what I like to do is do a serger stitch to enclose that raw edge only on this side. So I'm doing the serger stitch just where the ponytail is, not throughout, not all the way around the hat, because that will be enclosed in the quill part. So just a small serger stitch to close that raw edge to make sure that it doesn't fray. Or you can do a zigzag stitch on your machine or whatever you like, right here, just where the ponytail is. And now we're going to go ahead and snip where the ponytail opening meets the brim starts. We're going to snip about 1/4 inch on both sides. This will help us fold that part, okay, because we want to fold this part towards the brim, but only this part, okay? And that's why I finished the raw edge. See? This side here stays up. This part stays up. This part where the brim is gets folded and top stitched towards the brim. So again, we're top stitching towards the brim, just the part that we serged, where the ponytail opening is. Okay. So it's just a few inches that we're top stitching now. I'll show you what it looks like, because it might be easier once you see it done. Okay, so this is from the outside. See this part? It's top stitched down towards the brim. And now, using either twill tape or I'm using single fold bias tape, I'm going to top stitch the seam allowance, but this time I'm going with the seam allowance up towards the side of the hat. So I'm going to fold the raw edge of my bias tape. You don't have to do that if you're using twill tape, and lay it wrong sides towards the wrong side of the hat, so there's no raw edge on the tape. And then I'm going to stitch where the brim meets the hat part first. I'm basically going to enclose the raw edge. And this is the last step for this style hat. This is not reversible, so we're just enclosing the raw edge right now. When we get to the part that where the ponytail part starts, I'm going to just fold half an inch on the inside to close the raw edge of the bias tape. So I'm trimming this about half an inch more. And I'm folding towards the wrong side, like so. So right now one side of the twill or bias tape is sewn, and we're going to sew on around the other edge, pushing the seam allowance towards the top of, towards the sides of the hat. See, brim is this way, sides are that way. Now, keep going all around. To enclose that raw edge. There is an alternative method included in the pattern if you don't want to add bias tape or twill tape, where you fold your seam allowance prior and then you stitch in the ditch. Honestly, I find that method more difficult for me personally than this one, but again, do whichever method you feel more comfortable with. And we are done. Obviously it would have looked nicer if I matched my thread, but you won't see it from afar. So see the inside? There's no raw edges, it's enclosed in that single fold bias tape. Beautiful. Your hat is now done, and it has a beautiful opening for the ponytail. So if you're stopping here, if you're not adding the back part, post a picture of your completed hats in the day 4 and 5 if you're not adding the back. Day 4 and 5 check-in for the sew along album. I'll be assigning your check-in number from day 5, so it's okay if you skip 4, if you don't check in for day 4, since you probably... Important thing is to check in for day 5 with your completed hat so you get an entry for the drawing. And I will see you back here tomorrow when we'll be doing the removable shoulder back piece. Talk to you soon. Bye.